Hi.
Alright, I don't even know where to start with this, but here goes nothing. My life has basically turned into a bad crime show, except I'm the main suspect, and instead of some dramatic music playing in the background, all I get is dirty looks from my neighbors and cops breathing down my neck. A week ago, my wife, Danielle, and her friend Detective Ryan Carter disappeared. And when I say disappeared, I mean poof, gone. No bodies, no car, nothing. Just vanished off the face of the earth. You'd think I'd be worried, but let's be real here. I know exactly what was going on between them. Everybody knew. Danielle had been cheating on me for months, maybe even longer. And not just with some random guy, but with a detective. That's right, the same people who are now investigating me. You can probably imagine how this is playing out for me. It started when I noticed she was getting all dressed up on random Wednesday nights. New perfume, new lingerie. The whole 9 yards. But whenever I'd ask, she'd roll her eyes and say it was just a girls' night. Turns out, girls' night was actually sneak off to a motel with Ryan Knight. I wasn't stupid. I had my suspicions, so I hired a private investigator. Best money I ever spent because it confirmed everything I already knew. Pictures, texts, even a recording of them laughing about how I'd never figure it out. Classy, right? I confronted her, of course. She didn't even deny it. Just gave me some speech about how she deserved more and how I was too cold and distant. Right, because working my tail off as a lawyer to give her a comfortable life makes me the bad guy. That was 3 weeks ago. Then last week she and Ryan both went missing, and guess who became the prime suspect? That's right, me. Now, the cops don't have any actual proof. They just have motive. A very strong motive. But the thing is, there was this massive storm the night they vanished. Roads flooded, trees fell, and if there was any evidence of what really happened to them, it's probably long gone now. I know how this looks. I know what people are saying. But I didn't kill them. The problem? Nobody believes me. You ever have that moment where you realize someone's been planning to screw you over for a long time, and you were just too blind to see it? Yeah, that hit me like a truck. After Danielle and Ryan disappeared, I did what any innocent man would do. I cooperated. Answered their questions, gave them my alibi, handed over my phone. I thought, hey, I've got nothing to hide. They'll see that and move on. Wrong. Because someone wanted me to look guilty. It started small. My texts with Danielle suddenly seemed worse when read out of context. Like the time I texted, "You'll get what's coming to you," after she maxed out my credit card. Sounds bad now, huh? Or when I messaged Ryan, "Stay away from my wife or you'll regret it." That was months ago, back when I still thought I could scare him off. Stupid, I know, but not illegal. Then they found security footage from a gas station near my house the night they vanished. Apparently, I was filling up my tank at 2 a.m., just hours after Danielle and Ryan were last seen. I swear I wasn't doing anything shady, I just couldn't sleep. But to the cops, that looked real convenient. And the worst part, their car, Danielle's sleek little red sedan, was gone too. No sign of it. No evidence of where they went. Or so I thought. Because then the police got a tip. Someone anonymously called in and said they saw me driving Danielle's car that night. Which is impossible. I never touched her car. But now there's some random voice on a recording saying otherwise. I was being set up. And the worst part, I had no idea who was behind it. By the time I realized someone was framing me, it was already too late to play it cool. Cops weren't just suspicious anymore, they were watching me. My office? Under surveillance. My house? Probably bugged. Every time I went to the grocery store, I felt eyes on me. And then came Devin Cross. Now, Devin isn't really a friend. More like an old client who owed me big time. Years ago, I pulled some legal strings and saved his house from foreclosure. He never forgot that. And lucky for me, Devin just so happens to be a police sergeant. I needed information. So I called him up real casual and suggested we grab a drink. But not just anywhere, a cop bar. A place where uniforms come to unwind, shoot pool and complain about their bosses. If I met Devin there, it wouldn't look like we were sneaking around. Just two guys having a drink. When I walked in, the mood shifted. I wasn't just a lawyer anymore, I was that guy. The one they all whispered about. The one they thought got away with murder. Devon was already waiting at the bar, looking tense. "You trying to get me fired?" he muttered as I sat down. "Relax," I said, waving for a beer. "Just two old buddies catching up." He exhaled sharply but didn't argue. That was a good sign. For a while we just talked about nothing. Work. The storm. Some rookie cop who wrecked a squad car. Then, when the moment was right, I leaned in. "They're gonna search my house, aren't they?" I asked quietly. Devon didn't answer right away. Just swirled his drink, avoiding my eyes. Then, finally he muttered, "Tomorrow morning. Warrants already signed." I felt my stomach drop. "Home and office," he added. "They think you slipped up somewhere." I wasn't even sure what to say. I knew I was innocent, but innocent people go to prison all the time. And if someone had planted something in my house, it'd be game over. I had to act fast. And I had to make sure no one suspected Devon helped me. So I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed my beer, stood up and threw it in his face. The entire bar went dead silent. Devon sat there, dripping in beer, eyes wide with shock. Every cop in the place turned to stare at us. Some stood up, ready to jump in if things got ugly. I could already hear the murmurs. "What the hell is this guy doing?" "Perfect." "What's wrong, Sergeant?" I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Cat got your tongue?" Devon's jaw clenched. "You want to take this outside?" "Anytime," I shot back. "You think I don't know what you and your boys are doing? You think I don't see the way you look at me? Like I'm guilty?" I took a step forward, making it real. "You want me in cuffs so bad, why don't you do it right now?" The bartender cursed under his breath. Two younger cops moved closer. Devon wiped his face, breathing hard, looking like he was ready to deck me. I could tell he knew what I was doing, but he had no choice but to play along. "This ain't the place," he gritted out. I barked a laugh. "Yeah, sure. Right. Convenient, huh?" Then I grabbed my jacket and stormed out, shoving past a couple of officers on my way to the door. I could feel every pair of eyes on my back. And that's exactly what I wanted. Because now, no one would ever suspect Devon gave me a warning. I had maybe 10 hours before the cops came knocking. 10 hours to get my house and office in order. If I had anything that could be twisted against me, it had to be gone. I started at home. Checked my desk, my safe, my closets. Then I thought about Danielle. What if she left something? Some old letter, some receipt, something that could paint me as bitter and vengeful? I tore through drawers, cabinets, even the trash. Found a few old credit card statements that showed just how much money she was draining from our account. Found a half-packed suitcase in the back of the closet, probably from when I confronted her. Looked like she was planning to leave. Then, in the bedside drawer, I found her journal. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity got the best of me. And that's when I saw it. The last entry. Scrawled in her handwriting. "If he finds out the truth, he'll kill me." I felt the blood drain from my face. What the hell had Danielle been hiding? My hands were shaking as I flipped through the pages. Danielle had never been the type to keep a journal, at least not that I knew of. But here it was, hidden in the bedside drawer, filled with messy handwriting and frantic notes. The last entry was still staring at me. "If he finds out the truth, he'll kill me." I sat down, trying to steady my breathing. I wasn't the he she was talking about, at least I didn't think so. But the cops sure would love to see this. I had to know what the hell she meant. So I read. Most of it was nonsense. Complaints about me. About how I worked too much. About how she felt trapped in our marriage. But then, a few pages in, the tone changed. She started talking about Ryan. "Ryan says he loves me, but I don't know if I believe him. He talks about a future, but it's always just words. I need more than that. I saw a side of him today that scared me. I told him I wanted to slow things down, and he grabbed my wrist so hard it left a mark. He apologized right away, but it shook me. He's never done that before. Ryan is different lately. Paranoid. Angry. He's talking about running away together, but I don't know if I want that anymore. I think I made a mistake. Then came the last few entries. I told Ryan I need space. He didn't take it well. He said I can't just walk away. That I owe him. I don't know what to do. He threatened me today. Not outright, but I know what he meant. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, but I wasn't. He said if I left, I'd regret it. I don't think he'll let me go. If he finds out the truth, he'll kill me. I slammed the book shut, my heart pounding. Ryan wasn't just some cheating cop. He was dangerous. And now they were both missing. Which meant one of two things: either Danielle was in hiding, running from him, or Ryan had already made good on his threat. I sat there for a long time, just staring at Danielle's journal. The words blurred together, but that last sentence kept flashing in my mind. If he finds out the truth, he'll kill me. Ryan wasn't just some sleazy cop having an affair. He was a threat. And now both of them were gone. I checked the time, 4:12 a.m. I had maybe 5 hours before the cops kicked down my door. And I had a choice to make. Do I hand over this journal? Do I let them see that Danielle was scared of Ryan? No. Because let's be real, if they found this, all they'd see was the last sentence. They wouldn't read between the lines. They'd take one look at "he'll kill me" and decide I was the he. I needed to get rid of it. But I also needed to know what else she was hiding. I flipped through the pages again, looking for anything useful. And then I saw it, an address. Scrawled on the corner of a page, like she'd written it down in a hurry. 147 Westfield Road. I didn't recognize it. Not our house, not Ryan's. But Danielle had circled it twice, underlined it. What the hell was at that address? By 4:30 a.m., I had the journal stuffed in my jacket and my keys in my hand. I knew this was a risk. If the cops had eyes on me, sneaking out before a search warrant wouldn't look good. But I had no choice. I had to see what was at 147 Westfield Road. The storm had left the streets a mess, fallen branches, puddles big enough to swallow a car. I drove carefully, scanning for headlights behind me. If I was being followed, I didn't see it. When I pulled up to the address I expected, I don't know, a storage unit? Some motel she and Ryan used? But it wasn't that. It was a house. A small, rundown house on the outskirts of town, half hidden behind overgrown trees. No lights. No sign of life. I parked down the street and walked up cautiously, heart pounding. The porch creaked under my weight. The door had a rusted old padlock on it, but something was off. The lock was new. Someone had locked this place up recently. And then I noticed the smell. Faint but unmistakable. Rotting. Like something or someone had been left inside for too long. The smell hit me like a punch to the gut. Rot. Decay. Something dead was inside. I stood there frozen, my breath fogging up in the cold night air. My gut was screaming at me to leave, to walk away and pretend I never saw this place. But I couldn't. Danielle's handwriting was still fresh in my mind. 147 Westfield Road. She left this address for a reason. I had to know why. The padlock was new, but the doorframe? Old. Weak. I took a deep breath, grabbed the lock and pulled hard. The wood splintered, the metal latch snapped loose, and the door swung open with a groan. The smell rushed out like a wave, making my stomach churn. I pulled my sleeve over my nose and stepped inside. Dark. Cold. Quiet. The place had been abandoned for years, judging by the dust and cobwebs. The floor creaked under my weight. Faint moonlight spilled through broken blinds, casting eerie shadows over torn-up furniture. And then I saw them. Footprints. Fresh ones. Leading deeper inside. Someone had been here recently. I followed the prints down a narrow hallway, past a kitchen that smelled of mold and something worse. Then I reached a door at the end of the hall. It was slightly open. Something told me this was it. I pushed it open. There was a carpet in the center of the room. An old, stained rug. And on top of it, Blood. A dark, dried-up stain, soaked deep into the fabric. My pulse hammered in my ears. This wasn't just some random hideout. Something happened here. Something violent. I stepped closer, trying to steady my breathing. That's when I noticed the drag marks, long streaks in the dust, leading from the bloodstain toward a back door. Like someone had been pulled out of here. And suddenly I knew. Danielle and Ryan had been here. And one of them, maybe both, never walked out. I took a step back, my foot knocking against something. A metal box, half buried under debris. I bent down, pried it open. Inside were photographs. Of Danielle. Of Ryan. And of me. Someone had been watching us. Tracking us. And then, at the very bottom of the box, I found the worst thing yet. Danielle's wedding ring. Covered in blood. I stared at the ring, my fingers frozen above it. The metal gleamed in the dim light, but the dried blood smeared across it told me everything I needed to know. Danielle never took off her ring. Not even when she was sneaking around with Ryan. If it was here, covered in blood, then something had gone very wrong. I forced myself to breathe, to think. My mind was racing, trying to piece it together. This house. The blood. The drag marks. The photos of me, Danielle, and Ryan. Someone had been following us. Watching us. And now 2 of us were missing. My hands shook as I flipped through the photos. Some were old. Danielle out shopping, Ryan in uniform, me leaving my office. But then, one caught my eye. It was recent. Taken at the bar where I confronted Danielle about the affair. I remembered that night. I was furious. Ryan had been sitting at a table across the room, pretending not to watch us. Danielle had been lying through her teeth, acting like I was the crazy one. But this photo? This was taken from outside. Through the window. Someone had been there. Watching. Who the hell took these? I didn't get a chance to figure that out because just then... a noise. A car engine. Outside. I killed the flashlight on my phone and dropped into a crouch. Heart pounding. Hands gripping the ring so tight I thought it might cut my palm. Headlights swept across the broken blinds. A car door slammed shut. Someone was here. I moved fast, shoving the box of photos back into place. My mind was screaming, "Get out, get out, get out," but my body wasn't listening. Instead, I crept toward the front of the house, keeping low. The wooden floor groaned under my weight. I winced. Did they hear that? A shadow passed by the front window. A man's silhouette. Then, bang! The front door burst open. I barely had time to move before a flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping the room. A voice followed. Low. Cold. "I know you're in here." I flattened myself against the wall, gripping Danielle's bloody ring so hard it dug into my palm. The flashlight beam cut through the dust-filled air, sweeping left, then right. Footsteps followed, slow, careful. Whoever this was, they weren't in a hurry. They were taking their time. Hunting. I forced myself to breathe silently, my pulse hammering in my ears. The intruder took another step forward. Then I heard it. The sound of metal sliding against leather. A gun. This wasn't some random squatter. This person came here armed. And they weren't calling the cops. I needed to move now. I dropped into a crouch, inching toward the hallway. The floor creaked under my weight, and the flashlight snapped in my direction. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," the voice called. It was a man. Deep voice. Familiar somehow. I didn't answer. Just kept moving. My only way out was the back door. If I could make it there without being seen. Bang! A gunshot rang out, deafening in the small house. Wood exploded near my head. I dove forward, crashing through the doorway just as another shot blasted into the wall behind me. I hit the ground hard, but I didn't stop. Scrambled to my feet and bolted down the hall. Behind me, footsteps. Fast. I crashed into the back door at full speed, fumbling for the knob. Locked. The footsteps were closer now. No time. I threw my weight against the door, once, twice. On the third try the wood splintered, and I tumbled outside into the cold night air. I hit the dirt, rolled and pushed myself up. Ran. Didn't look back. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, parked half a block away. My lungs were burning, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my keys. I threw myself inside, locked the doors and forced my breathing to slow. Then I looked up. The house was dark again. Silent. The man hadn't followed me. He didn't have to. Because now he knew. He knew I was looking. And whoever he was, he wanted me dead. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My brain was screaming at me to drive, go get the hell out of here. But I couldn't. Not yet. I glanced back at the house, dark, silent, like nothing had just happened. But someone had been in there. Someone with a gun. And they knew I was poking around where I wasn't supposed to. I checked my phone. 5:12 a.m. Less than 2 hours before the cops raided my house and office. And now I had more questions than answers. Danielle and Ryan had been at that house. That much was clear. The blood. The drag marks. Her ring. But someone else had been watching them. Following them. And whoever that was. They just tried to kill me. I drove aimlessly, trying to think. I had to make a decision. Go home, clean up, act normal. Let the cops do their search and hope they don't find anything. Disappear. But running would make me look guilty as hell. Find out who else knew about that house. Option 3 felt like my best shot. I needed help. Someone who could dig deeper than me. Someone who wouldn't ask questions. Then it hit me. Clay. Clay Turner wasn't exactly what you'd call a law-abiding citizen. He was an ex-PI, the kind who worked off the books when people needed things done quietly. The kind of guy you paid in cash and never asked where he got his information. I hadn't spoken to him in years. Not since a case I handled for him went south. But right now, he was my best bet. I dialed his number, half expecting it to be disconnected. It rang. Once. Twice. Then click. A tired voice answered. This better be good. It's me, I said. I need a favor. Silence. Then a slow, amused chuckle. Well. Look who it is. Last time I saw you, you told me to go screw myself. I sighed. Yeah, and I meant it. But I need your help. Figures. What's the problem? I hesitated. Ever heard of 147 Westfield Road? Another silence. This one was different. Then Clay exhaled sharply. You need to stop whatever you're doing, man. Walk away. That sent a chill down my spine. You know the place? I asked. Yeah, Clay said. And if you're calling me about it? You're already in too deep. Clay wasn't the type to scare easy. If he was telling me to walk away, that meant I was knee-deep in something I wasn't supposed to be in. But I didn't have that option. You're gonna have to be more specific, I said, gripping the phone tighter. Because I don't have the luxury of walking away. Clay sighed and I could hear him moving around, probably lighting a cigarette. 147 Westfield Road, he muttered. That place has a history. Bad one. It used to be a stash house, drugs, stolen goods, all kinds of dirty business. Used to be. Yeah. Until a cop got caught up in it. My blood ran cold. Ryan Carter. That's the one. I pulled over, my mind racing. This wasn't just about an affair anymore. Danielle and Ryan weren't just sneaking around for fun. They were hiding something bigger. You're telling me Ryan was dirty? I asked. More than dirty, Clay said. He was running jobs on the side, small-time stuff at first. Then he got greedy. That house. That was one of his old drop spots. And Danielle? Clay exhaled. No clue. But if she was mixed up with Ryan, it wasn't just about cheating. She either knew what he was doing or worse, she was a part of it. I clenched my jaw. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture wasn't clear yet. Listen, man, Clay said, his voice lower now. If you were snooping around that house and someone came after you, that means the wrong people think you know too much. I closed my eyes. Yeah. I figured that out when the bullets started flying. Clay swore under his breath. You need to lay low. The cops are already watching you, right? Yeah. Then don't give them a reason to lock you up. Because if they do... He paused. You might not make it out. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just about Danielle and Ryan anymore. This was about something bigger. And someone wanted me dead for getting too close. I didn't have time to process what Clay just told me. Because the second I pulled up to my house I saw them. Cops. Everywhere. Squad cars lined the street. Detectives in suits stood near the front door. And in the middle of it all, a search team with a warrant. I barely had time to kill the engine before a uniformed officer stepped up to my window, tapping on the glass. Out of the car, sir. I forced a breath, shoved Danielle's bloody ring deep into my pocket and stepped out. Is there a problem, officer? You know why we're here, a voice cut in. I turned and saw Detective Harris, a smug middle-aged cop who had been eyeing me like a meal ticket since the investigation started. He smirked as he held up the search warrant. Step aside, he said. Let's see what you've been hiding. I stood on my porch as they tore my house apart. Drawers dumped, closets emptied, furniture flipped. I watched in silence, forcing myself to stay calm. They weren't going to find anything, at least nothing that could tie me to Danielle and Ryan's disappearance. Unless... A sinking feeling hit me. What if whoever was setting me up planted something? I clenched my fists, forcing my face to stay neutral. Panic would only make me look guilty. Then, one of the officers called out. Detective! You might want to see this. I turned. The cop was holding a shovel. Dirt-covered. From my garage. Harris's smirk widened. Planning some late-night gardening? I gritted my teeth. It's just a shovel. He twirled a finger in the air. Bag it. This was bad. Really bad. A shovel covered in dirt. That screamed freshly dug grave. I needed to flip the situation. Fast. Detective, I said, crossing my arms. Are we really at the point where a dirty shovel is evidence? Because if that's the case, you might want to arrest half the homeowners in this neighborhood. A couple of the younger officers exchanged glances. They knew I was right. But Harris just smiled. Oh, don't worry. This is just the beginning. He stepped closer, voice lowering. I know you did it, he murmured. And I'm going to prove it. I didn't flinch. Then I guess you better start digging. They dragged the search out for hours. My house was a wreck, papers scattered, furniture overturned, my entire life picked apart like I was already convicted. And what did they find? Nothing. At least nothing that could actually tie me to Danielle and Ryan's disappearance. But that didn't stop Harris. He bagged the shovel like it was the smoking gun, took my computer, my phone, even some old clothes from the hamper. It was all for show. They had nothing and they knew it. But they wanted to rattle me. And it was working. Because as I stood there watching them tear through my life, a thought kept hammering in my brain. Someone was setting me up. And they were really good at it. By the time they finished, the sun was up. I was exhausted. Beaten down. Harris stepped up, smug as ever. We'll be in touch. I kept my face neutral. Looking forward to it. Then, just as he turned to leave. Detective, one of the officers called. I looked over. The cop was holding a phone. Not mine. A burner phone. From my office. Harris grinned like a wolf. Well, well. What do we have here? I clenched my jaw. That wasn't mine. I had never seen it before in my life. But saying that wouldn't matter. It was in my office. That was all they needed. One of the tech guys started going through it. I watched as his face changed. Shock. Then interest. Then satisfaction. Then he turned the screen to Harris. Even from where I stood, I saw it. Texts. To Danielle. And the last message? We need to meet. Ryan can't know. Tonight, same place. I felt my stomach drop. That was it. The final nail. Harris looked up at me, his grin stretching wider. Looks like we found our man. I stared at the burner phone, my mind racing. That wasn't mine. I had never seen it before. Never touched it. But none of that mattered now. Because Harris was looking at me like I was already in handcuffs. Go ahead, I said, forcing my voice to stay even. Check the fingerprints. Check the purchase records. That phone isn't mine. Harris chuckled. Oh, don't worry. We'll check. But something tells me we're gonna find your prints all over it. I clenched my fists. Someone had planted it. They'd set this whole thing up so perfectly, just enough to make me look guilty, but not enough for an immediate arrest. Because they didn't want me locked up. They wanted me squirming. They wanted me to panic. And if I panicked, I'd make a mistake. I took a slow breath, forcing my body to relax. You still don't have a body, I said. Or a murder weapon. Or any actual proof that I did anything. Harris's smirk faltered, just for a second. He knew I was right. You might want to get yourself a good lawyer, he said instead. You're gonna need one. Then he turned and walked out, taking the burner phone, the fake evidence, with him. I was officially screwed. I waited until the last cop was gone before stepping inside. My house was trashed. They'd flipped everything looking for something, anything to nail me with. But my mind wasn't on that. I grabbed my real phone and called Clay. He picked up on the second ring. I saw the raid, he said. It's all over the damn news. Yeah, I muttered. They found a burner phone in my office. Planted. Clay swore. They're tightening the noose, man. You need to disappear. I shook my head. No. Not yet. I need to find out who's doing this. And I think I know where to start. Because there was one thing I hadn't told Clay yet. That burner phone? I recognized the number it was texting. It was Danielle's. And if someone had been messaging her pretending to be me, then that meant Danielle might not have been playing Ryan after all. She might have been the real target. I didn't run. I didn't disappear. Because I was done playing defense. Someone had been setting me up from the start, pulling the strings, making me look guilty while they covered their own tracks. And now, I was going to find them. I met Clay at a diner outside of town. Low traffic, no cops, no eyes watching. He looked at me like I was a dead man walking. You're playing a dangerous game, he muttered. Yeah. I stirred my coffee, not drinking it. So's the guy who framed me. Clay exhaled. All right. Tell me what you got. I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. On the screen, a text message I'd just received. From Danielle's number. Meet me. Same place. Tonight. Clay's face went pale. That's impossible. Yeah, I said. Because Danielle is supposed to be dead. I drove back to 147 Westfield Road that night. This time I came prepared. A gun in my glove compartment. Gloves on my hands. No mistakes. The house was still abandoned, still reeking of death. But now I could feel it. Someone was here. I stepped inside, heart pounding. And then, a figure moved in the shadows. About time you showed up, a voice said. I froze. Because I knew that voice. Ryan. He stepped into the dim light, his face bruised, his eyes hollow. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. You really should have stayed out of it, he muttered. I clenched my fists. Where's Danielle? Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. Still playing the concerned husband? That's cute. I took a step forward. Tell me where she is. Ryan sighed. Fine. You want the truth. He reached into his pocket and tossed something at my feet. Danielle's wedding ring. Still covered in dried blood. She's gone, Ryan said flatly. And it's your fault. The room spun. I forced myself to stay still. You killed her. Ryan smirked. You say that like you're surprised. I swallowed hard. Why? What was she caught up in? Ryan exhaled, like he was tired of playing games. Danielle found out things she wasn't supposed to know. About me. About the people I work for. She got scared. She wanted out. And you couldn't let her leave, I muttered. Ryan's smirk faded. I gave her a choice. Me or nothing. His voice dropped lower. She chose wrong. I felt sick. She tried to set you up, you know, Ryan added casually. She knew she was in danger, so she started keeping evidence. Little notes. Fake messages from you, to make it look like you were after her. The burner phone. But she didn't realize, Ryan said, grinning again. She was setting up the wrong man. I clenched my jaw. And now you're trying to finish the job? Ryan shrugged. Nothing personal. Then he pulled his gun. I moved first. I grabbed the metal chair beside me and swung. Hard. The impact knocked Ryan off balance. His gun went off, bang, but the shot missed. I tackled him. We hit the floor hard, grappling, fists flying. His gun skidded across the room. He was strong, but I was angry. I landed a punch across his jaw, then another. Ryan groaned, reaching for something, a knife strapped to his belt. I didn't give him the chance. I grabbed the nearest object, a brick from the broken fireplace, and swung. Crack! Ryan collapsed. His body went limp. His breathing stopped. I stood there, chest heaving, staring down at him. He was dead. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I could breathe again. The next morning, the police found Ryan's body. No leads. No witnesses. Just a dead cop with a dirty past. The case against me? It fell apart. No Danielle. No Ryan. No murder weapon. Just a missing wife and a dead man with more enemies than friends. Eventually they moved on. The media called it a mystery. I called it justice. And me? I walked away. But I never forgot. Because somewhere out there, Danielle's body was still missing. And some secrets? They never stay buried.
Goodbye.